DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. Let's talk about Team USA and what's actually happening here when it comes to the basketball. It's bigger than just the roster on Team USA. For those of you who ain't following, they already played. I'm recording this on July the 13th. So they played 2 exhibition games so far. They played against Nigeria and they lost, and then they played against Australia and they lost that. So before I go deeper into that, make sure I let y'all know I have a text line where you can send me a text straight from your phone. My number is 305-384-6894. Send me a text and you can ask me a question, follow-up comment. You got a challenge or something you want to ask me about, you can address it to that number there. Of course, you got the comments down here on YouTube, but you'll also be able to get my daily motivation text messages that I send every morning to your phone if you just send me a text at that number. The number is also in the description. And this is the official copy of my newest book, The Third Day. Before I had the author-only copy, now we got this is the copies I'm going to be sending out. This is the paperback. We got the hardback as well. The link to this is also down below, thirddaybook.com. This is my newest book, my 29th book. My 28th is the Work on Your Game System Manual. It's basically like a textbook of the whole Work on Your Game philosophy. You can get both of these by going to thirddaybook.com. Link down below in the description. So all that said, let's talk about Team USA. Here's what people got to understand. All right, obviously we know that they're losing. I said when this team roster got announced, I said the only reason I am confident that this team can win gold, is because of Kevin Durant. Because Kevin Durant is one of the best 5 basketball players on the planet. And him being on the roster and being the type of player that he is, as versatile as he is, and how he can kind of do anything on the floor, excuse me, puts Team USA in a position to win gold. And Kevin Durant also has the experience. He was on the team in, I think it was 2012, the first time he played with USA, at least with the big guys team. Then in 2014, I believe, that was the year he carried the team. I think that was when they were playing in Turkey. And he's been part of the organization, and we know what Kevin Durant can do. Here's the thing that a lot of casual basketball fans don't understand when it comes to FIBA basketball. And FIBA basketball means, when I say FIBA here, I'm talking any kind of basketball that's outside of the United States. The United States is the only place in the world that doesn't play under FIBA rules, and they don't play a FIBA style. When the Team USA got announced, I remember the first exhibition game even, they put the starting lineup out. The starting lineup was like KD, Brad Beal, Damian Lillard, and 2 other people. I don't even know. It doesn't even matter who they were. Maybe it was Jason Tatum. I don't know who to find. Maybe Bam Adebayo, whatever. And people were commenting. I was looking at the comments that people were making about it, and they were like, oh man, this team is unstoppable. Nobody can stop this team. This team is fire and all that. And I was looking at it like, nah, not really. Because what y'all got to understand is that FIBA basketball is not a pickup game. And a lot of what we do in the United States, American basketball, on any level, whether we're talking street ball, recreational leagues, pro-am basketball leagues, the NBA, maybe not so much college, because college is very structured and is more based on like what the coach wants rather than what the players want. But everything else in basketball, pickup, all the stuff that we do, is all about the individual and it's all about points, right? It's all about how many points you got, who can score the most, who can get the most highlights. That's what we all focus on. They do it in the NBA. It's all about the individual player, right? How much stats this guy got and this guy. Remember a couple of years ago, Daryl Morey was just insisting that James Harden's a better offensive player than Michael Jordan, and his whole argument was about the stats and the analytics of how James Harden gets his points and all these things. And I'm like, all right, he had to come up with that because there's no way that you can say that James Harden is better than Michael Jordan. And he ain't better than Michael Jordan. And I don't even think he's better than Michael Jordan on offense, but that's a different conversation. But the point is, Daryl Morey was saying that because it was a reflection of what we do here in the United States. Everything's about the individual and what kind of stats you can put up. And usually when we say stats, we're talking about points. Then you got a few guys, you got the triple-double guys, you got the Russell Westbrooks getting triple-doubles. But it's all about the individual and your stats. Understand something. For those of you who have never played basketball outside of USA and you're from the USA, basketball is not played like that anywhere else in the world. The only place in the world where the ball is played like that is here in the USA, which is okay because the USA has the top league, which is the NBA. We have the majority of the top players. But if we're going to play international competition or any of you players want to go play overseas, understand you can't go there playing the way that you learn how to play in the United States. You won't last. you're not going to be good, and you might not even play. You might not even be on the team, honestly. And it's funny because I see these videos that nowadays the basketball trainers, that's like the new star, right? The basketball trainers, they're like an entity in themselves. They had their own brands, all these trainers. So the trainers, they get known because I train this guy, this guy, this guy. There was an article ESPN did a couple of years ago just talking about the trainers and how they compete with each other. Like, yeah, I'm the trainer of this guy, and they try to claim certain players as their guys and build their brand around doing that, which is fine. I mean, they're trainers. Obviously, you want to have clients, and that's how you make money. And now the trainers, the new thing is the trainers have their own pickup games, right? So you got trainer X has their pickup runs, and then this trainer has their runs, and this trainer has their runs. So if I was a trainer, it'd be like the Dre pickup runs, and everybody comes there, and then of course I got my cameramen in the gym, and we're filming everything, and I'm like, yo, look at this guy. I got Klay Thompson at my runs, or John Wall's at my runs, or LeBron James came to the Dre pickup runs, and then I post the little clips of whatever star player getting their highlights and stuff like that. And I look at these highlights sometimes. Sometimes I see them on ESPN will grab something and they'll post it on Twitter. Or every once in a while, somebody will post something, it'll pop up in my Instagram feed. I don't follow any of these cats, but I'll see it in my Instagram feed, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, these guys ain't even playing basketball. Like, this is basically two guys playing, it's 5-on-5, but it's two guys playing one-on-one, and then there's 8 dudes standing around watching them play one-on-one. Like, when somebody gets the ball, everybody's walking up the court on defense because they know they don't have to actually play defense. It's just going to be whoever got the ball, they get to go one-on-one. Everybody else sits around and watches. Even the big guys, it's the same thing. Everybody just watches while 2 guys go one-on-one. It just happens to be 10 guys on the court. Like, y'all might as well just play one-on-one. Y'all might as well just have a whole bunch of dudes play one-on-one and let everybody watch. They're not playing 5-on-5. It's not like people are playing help defense and digging in and being the low man and selling themselves out or taking charges. Like, they're not doing anything that you actually have to do in an NBA game or anything you would do in a G League game or a college game or an overseas game. They're not doing any of that stuff, but they're saying they're making a big deal out of these runs, and which is fine. I mean, that's what you want to do. You play basketball and you're a pro, and this is how you want to spend your off season, getting your highlights in some pickup game that nobody's playing defense and nobody's moving off the ball. It's not like people are setting stagger screens off the ball for somebody to get open. They're not doing any of that stuff. But that's how you want to spend your summer. Like, you do what you want to do. But when we get into these international competitions, or you players who want to play overseas, you go play overseas, and then we realize, this is what happens. We realize, oh damn, what we are used to doing in the United States and what we call hooping in America does not fly in international basketball. And I'm going to tie this back to Team USA in a minute. But when I talk to overseas basketball players or players who want to play basketball overseas, a lot of them have this warped, incorrect idea of what overseas basketball is like. Because players will see, let's say somebody like me, let's say I'm playing overseas, and I come home for the summer, I'm in Miami, I'm playing in some recreational league, and word gets out like, yo, he plays overseas. So now all the players who want to play overseas, they want to guard me or they want to match up with me and score on me. And then if they get 20 in the game on me, they're like, all right, well, he played overseas. I had 20 on him. I can play overseas. And, hey, maybe you can, but maybe you can't. Because just because you scored on me in a rec game in the summer does not mean you go overseas and get 20. Because the way that you get 20 in some bum-ass rec league in America is not the same way you would get 20 playing ball overseas. There's several things about basketball overseas. Number one is that it's not about the individual at all. And I've been talking about this for years, but I got to keep saying it because a lot of players are hard-headed. A lot of you casual fans just don't understand what you don't understand. It's not about the individual, and it's not about points, and it damn sure ain't about stats. If you go overseas playing like that, you will get cut, first of all. You won't even be on the team. You'll be released from your contract. And if you are on the team, you're going to be sitting on the bench. There are guys who play overseas right now, who play in the top leagues in Europe overseas. These are guys who are all conference or even conference player of the year at D1 schools in America. They play overseas and they're barely averaging double figures in points. Not because they got worse at basketball, and it's not because the players overseas are just so great that these guys couldn't get more points. It's just because the style of play is not conducive to just get stats and just get points. It's more about the team. And it doesn't matter who scores the points. That's the thing about playing basketball overseas. Very rare that you get one guy who's just putting up crazy stats. That's why you don't see people overseas averaging 30 unless they're playing in maybe a lower type of league. There are lower leagues, and the leagues that I even have seen and participated in, where it's like, yeah, just get the ball and just score as many points as you can. When I was playing in Mexico, for example, it was just about points. They basically try to be like America. They get an American player who can score, just score every time. I remember I was in Mexico, my agent used to say to me, Dre, look, the whole thing is points. Like, score as many points as you can. They judge you by your points. If you score 30, then you're good. If you score 15, you're not good. And it doesn't matter what else happened in the game. It's just all about stats. In the lower leagues, it can be like that. But in the higher leagues, like the kind of guys who are playing against Team USA, these guys play in higher leagues of basketball and FIBA ball. You can't play like that. You're not going to win. And the United States, and there's a whole thing about the United States I'm going to get to in a second. But first, I just got to get clear on just the American culture of basketball, how it's all about the individual. And that's fine if you grow up in America, you play ball in America, and then you just stay playing ball in America. If you never go overseas, if you never play FIBA-style basketball, then none of this stuff will ever actually apply to you and hit you in your face. But if you do go play overseas, or you do play FIBA basketball, or you care about USA winning in international competition, then you see what's happening these first two games for Team USA, and you're like, what the hell is going on? This is what I'm explaining to you. Now, this doesn't mean that Team USA is doomed. They may still win. And hopefully the NBA Finals ends. There's a couple guys who's playing right now who are supposed to join. Like they said, Devin Booker's supposed to join, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton. I think those are the only three guys that are playing right now that are supposed to join Team USA. And here's the problem with that. None of those guys are going to make a difference. None of those guys are going to make a difference in what's happening with Team USA. I mean, they're good players, and maybe they can be an upgrade on some of the players who are playing right now. But Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton are more of what we already have on the team. Again, they may be a little bit higher level of what we have, but they're not exactly what Team USA needs. And I'm going to explain that in a second. And people were saying things like Trae Young. Trae Young didn't make, he didn't make I think he didn't make all NBA teams, didn't make All-Star, didn't get invited to the Team USA, and people are like, well, look at the stats Trae Young put up. Look at what he's doing in the playoffs. He should be on Team USA. Not really. Trae Young is not really the kind of player that we need either. Now, Trae Young will probably be on the next Team USA, the next version of it, whenever that is. He'll probably be on the roster. But understand, Trae Young ain't the kind of player that we need. What Team USA needs, we need to look back. Let me give y'all just a quick history lesson, because I know I may be older than a lot of y'all who are watching this. 1992, when we first started sending pro players to play in international competition, we sent like the best possible team that has ever been put together. And we know who was on that team: Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, etc., etc. Only two things could have been changed about that team. Would have been the greatest team of all time, without question. One, Shaq replacing Christian Laettner, and number two, Isaiah Thomas replacing John Stockton. Both of them should have been on the team. Had those two guys been on the team, that would have been the greatest team ever in any sport, and there would be no discussion about it. There can be some discussion because they had those two omissions that they could have got that right, but they didn't get it right. But anyway, that team won for several reasons. First of all, we had more talent than everybody, and nobody had seen anything like that before. So it was the element of surprise and the element of talent allowed Team USA to dominate and win the gold medal that year. And then as the years went on, when we got to the 96 team, we still had the most talent and still won the gold medal fairly easily, but you could see that the gap was closing. It was a little bit sloppier. The 92 team won, it was just clean. They just dominated, and it was just clean domination because these guys really knew how to play. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. Here's the thing about those guys that most people don't talk about as much anymore. All of those guys played college basketball for at least 3 years before they came into the NBA, which meant they knew how to play within a team construct on top of the fact that they had the individual talent. And then on top of the fact that they all, because of that experience that they had playing in college and being coached and fitting into a team and then going to the league and getting to be an individual star, they had both team and individual. And so then when you could just throw Michael Jordan on a team with anybody, Michael Jordan's going to find a way to contribute. Even if you're not running plays for Michael Jordan, he's going to find a way to score points because Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. You can do the same with Scottie Pippen, Karl Malone, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing. All of those guys will figure out a way to contribute to a winning team, even if you don't build around them, because they knew how to play within a team and they had individual talents. By the time we got to 96, it was only 4 years later, we started to have these players who didn't get the same kind of coaching. Players who came up in the era of getting these big contracts in the league before they'd even proven anything. Not to say that they weren't good, but they were being given reward before they'd even proven that they were worthy of the reward. So the players didn't have that team thing as much anymore. They were more about the individual, and we started to not win as easily. And we didn't have the same amount of talent advantage because the rest of the world started to catch up to us. By the year 2000, this is the team with Vince Carter when he did the dunk over the French guy, Frederick Rice, Kevin Garnett, Gary Payton, Tim Hardaway. This team was good, but by 2000, we already had an emergency. I don't know if any of you remember watching the 2000 Olympics. It's over 20 years ago. I watched every game of that Olympics, and we almost lost in 2000. We were playing Lithuania, and there was a dude from Lithuania who had a wide-open three-pointer at the buzzer. If he would have made it, they would have beat the United States. He missed, and the United States won that game. They ended up winning the gold medal. That was in Sydney, Australia. We almost lost that year, but nobody talked about it because we won. We won all the games, went undefeated. Everybody's like, all right, we're good. 2002, we got our ass kicked at the World Championships in Indianapolis with a terrible team because by 2002, only 10 years in, the American players didn't even take international competition. They didn't care anymore. We weren't even sending our best players. There was no Kobe, no Shaq. This is 2002. This Kobe and Shaq were dominating. We didn't even have our best players. 2004, we had a fairly good team, but it just wasn't well put together. We had kind of players that don't do well in international competition, like Allen Iverson. Listen, Allen Iverson's an iconic basketball player. We all know this. Allen Iverson's not an international basketball player. That's why that team was not good. He was probably the head guy on that team. That team didn't do well because Allen Iverson's not the kind of player who needs to be playing international ball. He doesn't fit because his style of play is not conducive to international ball. Even when Allen Iverson went and played in Turkey later on in his career, it wasn't going to work because he's not the type. It doesn't work. Like, you got to be a certain type of player to play international basketball. I'm explaining that. I'm in the process of explaining that. Then 2006, that's when we started putting together the program. Bring in Coach K, get these players, make them make a 3-year commitment. And in 2006, we came in third in the World Championships. That's when we had Dwayne Wade, LeBron, Melo. That's when they were actually starting to become good. 2004, they were on the team, but they couldn't help. They were rookies. They just finished their rookie year. Then 2008, we had the Redeem team. That's when we had Kobe, Chris Paul, Jason Kidd. That was a great team. That was the next best team we had since '92. That team went out and redeemed the United States, won the gold medal. Not as good as the '92 team, let's be clear, but they were a very good team because we had dynamic players. The 2008 team is the kind of team that we need now. Same as the 92 team. 92 is a little bit different because we were able to just throw those guys together because they were so much better, and we had the element of surprise with the rest of the world. 2008, we were not surprising the world, but you had the right players and we won because we had the best team. And what I mean by that, you look at the players we had on 2008. LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and I'm going to talk about Melo again in a second. Jason Kidd, Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant. Who else was to start? Darren Williams, Dwayne Wade. These kind of players, these are dynamic players. What is a dynamic player? Dynamic player is very simply a player who can be dominant on both ends of the floor and a player who can be very effective even if you're not giving him the ball every time. Dwayne Wade is that kind of player. You don't have to run the offense through Dwayne Wade the whole game for Dwayne Wade to have a major impact on the game. Look at Dwayne Wade when he was playing with the Miami Heat. Before LeBron got there, everything was around Dwayne Wade. He'd go average his 30, do his thing. The Heat were a very good team. He carried that team. LeBron gets there. Dwayne Wade defers to LeBron. Everything's going through LeBron. Dwayne Wade was still an all-star. Dwayne Wade was still a star, even though LeBron was on the team and everything wasn't running through D-Wade anymore because he's a dynamic player. He's the kind of player that will make an impact on a game, even if everything's not about him. Kobe Bryant. Not everybody was sure Kobe could do it. I knew he could do it because I can see nuances in the game that a casual fan may not recognize. But look at Team USA again. Nobody on Team USA, nobody was having everything run through them on Team USA. They were playing a FIBA style of basketball where it's not about any individual. Kobe was still a contributor and he still found a way to have an impact even though it wasn't all about him. LeBron James, the exact same thing. They had these dynamic players who they were all impact players on defense. It's a key thing, keep this in mind. They all could make plays even if the ball wasn't coming to them every play. And that's why they were able to win. And they all were all about that team thing and let's make sure that we win. And look at a guy like Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony's like the ideal FIBA basketball player. Like if Carmelo Anthony didn't make it in the NBA, Carmelo Anthony would be a star in Europe. He'd be like the MVP of the EuroLeague. Why is this? Because Carmelo Anthony can get you 20 points in a game without you running any plays for Carmelo Anthony. He doesn't need to dribble to score points. He can shoot from the outside. He's strong enough that he can hold his own in the paint on the inside. He can score around the rim. He's not going to get bullied in the paint defensively. He's the kind of, even though Carmelo Anthony's not a great defensive player, he's not great one-on-one. Like, you get him in space on like a pick and roll or switch and he has a guard to guard, he can get roasted off the bounce. But if you have him playing in the EuroLeague type of game where it's not always like that, where he just has to bang with these bigger guys who are not as athletic as him, or not as quick as him, he can bang with them in a pinch. He can play like a small ball forward and be dominant. He can play that the whole game and do his thing. This is why Melo was always so good playing for Team USA, because he doesn't need the ball and he's dynamic enough defensively that even though he's not a great defensive player, he can hold his own if you put him in the right position, which is like playing that small ball forward type of guy. That's why Melo worked so well. Melo is actually very similar to Kevin Durant in the FIBA game. Not in the NBA game, they're not so similar. But in the FIBA game, they're actually very similar. Is that, look at Kevin Durant. You don't have to run plays for Kevin Durant. He's still going to get you 20 points. Kevin Durant can score a bunch of points on you without really dribbling that much. You can just hit him with a pass. He can just shoot over top of you. He can get in the lane, and he can dunk on you. He can score anywhere on the floor from outside the three-point line all the way into the rim. And that's why he's the kind of player he is. Dwayne Wade, same guy. LeBron James, same guy. Kobe Bryant, same guy. Now, here's the thing with the guards, and I'm talking about the smaller guards. I'm not talking about like the D-Wade. Dwayne Wade is a different type of guard that doesn't come along that often. Dwayne Wade is like 6'4", but he's like 215 pounds, and he can jump. Like, Dwayne Wade can get up and dunk on a big man and block. He can block a center's shot at the rim. Dwayne Wade is a different type of guard. I'm talking about, you look at a guard like a Chris Paul or a Darren Williams, these guys who are not above the rim players and they're backcourt guys. You have to have a certain type of guy to make that work in the FIBA game. In the FIBA game, they got to be the kind of guards who can play without the ball in their hands sometimes. They can, kind of move without the ball. They know how to move without the ball. They're used to moving without the ball, and they can play in open space without having a ball in their hands. Team USA that we have right now, these guys are not really good at doing that. And also, these guys got to be really good floor generals, meaning they're the kind of guys who can run the offense. Even if they're not scoring the points, they can get the ball to everybody else who needs the ball, and they're content with that, and they're good at running that position. Darren Williams was good at doing that when he was in his prime on Team USA. Chris Paul's great at it. Jason Kidd's great at it, even though Jason Kidd was never a really great outside shooter. He became adequate, but he was never great. But it worked. Those three guards we had in 2008, that worked because of the style of play that they played. That's just the way that they play the game. Look at the guards that we have now. Damian Lillard is not that kind of guard. Damian Lillard is not like Chris Paul. Damian Lillard is the kind of guard who's going to score points. He's the kind of guy who's going to get 30, right? That's what he does in the NBA. He scores 30. He's been on the Blazers his whole career. The whole time Damian Lillard's been playing in the NBA, it's all been about him. Like, he had LaMarcus Aldridge on his team, but Damian Lillard's the guy in Portland. All right, it's all been about him. He's not the kind of guy who can be a floor general, just run the offense, get the ball to everybody else, and then move without the ball, get yourself open. Like, how often you see Damian Lillard running to the corner, catching a pass and hitting the three in the corner? He doesn't do it because that's not what they need him to do on his team. That's not his style of play. And he's not a floor general. Like, get the ball to everybody else, and he's good with scoring 10 points while he gets everybody else touches. That's not his play style, and it's not his fault. It's not that Damian Lillard did anything wrong. It's just that this is not the type of players that you need when you're playing FIBA basketball. Now, I understand Team USA's conundrum because they want to put the quote-unquote best players. What happened with Team USA right now, and this is something that they do need to address, is that they're back to playing pickup basketball. When we started in 92, we played pickup, but it was clear who the best players were. We put the best players out there. 96, put a bunch of the best players again. 2000, same thing again, but by that point, we started to not have our best players, and then it wasn't until 2008 we got our best players again, and the right kind of best players. It's not just the best players, it's the right kind of best players. Right now, we're back to playing pickup. Right now, we're just picking the best, the most talent. Who are the most talented players? And people are looking at the roster like, oh, this guy averaged 30, Bradley Beal averaged 30, Kevin Durant averaged 30, oh, we're going to win. No, that is not the way international ball works, and this is why this team is in trouble. You put a guy like Draymond Green. Draymond Green is a great player in American basketball. What makes Draymond great in American basketball is that he doesn't need the ball. As far as like shot attempts, he doesn't need the ball. You don't have to run plays for him. He's the kind of guy you could put a bunch of people who can score around him, and he's perfect because he gets everybody else the ball. In FIBA basketball, he becomes a liability simply because he is completely ineffective offensively. He's kind of like, offensively, when it comes to scoring, he's like Ben Simmons. Like, he can't do anything, can't shoot, can't really score at the rim like that because he's not athletic. He's not an above-the-rim player. His in-between game is not really there. He's a zero offensively when it comes to scoring the basketball. He's great at passing the basketball, but he's a zero when it comes to scoring the basketball. And the problem with that is in the FIBA basketball, teams will game plan around that and force him to do something. In the NBA, you can kind of game plan around him and let him utilize the fact that you're not playing him defensively for scoring. You could use that against them, and that's how he can get people like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and KD when he was on the team open shots. And FIBA basketball is kind of gets inverted, and that gets used against him. So he's not the right kind of player for FIBA basketball. He shouldn't be on the team. He shouldn't be playing. Not because he's not a good player. Draymond Green is a good player in the NBA. He's not a good player for FIBA basketball. Damian Lillard is a good player in the NBA. He's not a good player for FIBA basketball. Steph Curry, I think, would be helpful just because he has such he's so great at that shooting thing, the thing that he does, and he's like a magnet. He makes the whole defense have to pay attention to him because he's such a great shooter, and the line is a little bit closer. Steph Curry would be good for this team just because of the ability that he brings just with that. Even somebody like Russell Westbrook would be good for Team USA. And he's been on USA before. He's good for Team USA because he's not just like him, but he's similar to a guy like Dwayne Wade. And that Russell Westbrook is a super athlete, and his athleticism, even though he's not a great outside shooter, he can kind of make some bad decisions when it comes to what he does with the ball. Because he's so athletic, he forces the defense to compromise itself because he's so athletic and he can get to the rim and he plays downhill and he's always attacking. That kind of athleticism that he has puts him on a plane above most of the players you want to play against in FIBA, and that alone creates an advantage for somebody like Russell Westbrook, whereas Bradley Beal's not that guy. Bradley Beal is a great player. He's a great outside shooter. Is Bradley Beal an impact player on defense? No. And this is one of the issues that we have here. The guy that I do like on Team USA is Jason Tatum from the Celtics. He's a good Team USA guy because he's in the mold of Kevin Durant. He's not Kevin Durant, but he's in that mold. That he has the size, he has the length, he can shoot from the outside, he can score on the inside, and he can be an impact player on defense when he wants to be. Now, I don't think he's shown that he's going to do it every night defensively in the NBA, but he can be when he wants to be. He has the tools to be that kind of guy where he can be a super impact player defensively. And if he's strong enough, he can maybe even hold his own in the paint. I don't think against FIBA he's going to be able to. I think that's going to be a problem for Team USA because he's going to be one of our key players. It's going to be a problem because other teams, if they have bigs, like real bigs, Jason Tatum can't really hold his own against those kind of bigs. He can hold his own in a pinch. Maybe on a play or two, he can defend a big, but he doesn't have the mass, the lower body mass of like a Carmelo Anthony to where you can't push him around. He can be pushed around by bigger bigs. And the only big we have on the roster that is really active is Bam Adebayo, and Bam is okay. The thing is, Bam's not a great outside shooter. He can't hit the three-point shot. I don't consider him to be quite dynamic enough. He's not quite dynamic enough. He's good in the NBA. Again, all these guys are good in the NBA. But in FIBA basketball, he's not quite dynamic enough that he's what we need. A guy who was good in that dynamic position as a big for Team USA, the best one would be Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis can hit a three. He can actually put the ball on the floor a little bit. He can play above the rim. And even though he doesn't have the heft, he's not that big, and like he can kind of get bullied against bigger guys who are playing against Team USA. Those big guys in FIBA, usually they're not so athletic. Like, they're big, but they're not so athletic. So Anthony Davis can use his athletic ability against those guys, even though he might not have the body mass to bang with them. Anthony Davis is the ideal. Bam ain't quite Anthony Davis. And the other guy we got is Kevin Love. And I actually defended Kevin Love's choice to be on the team because he can shoot from the outside, and he has the size. He can't play above the rim, but he has the size that he won't get pushed around. But if he's looking washed, and I didn't see the first two games, but from what I heard, he's looking washed right now. So I'm not sure Kevin Love is a good choice either. So, I mean, I've already talked about half the people on the roster. We in trouble. All right, the bottom line is we're in trouble because we don't have a whole lot of dynamic players on this roster. We have good players, and players who obviously we all know do their thing in the NBA. But to win in FIBA for Team USA, you need dynamic players because these guys are not used to, I'm talking about our team, America, we're not used to playing the FIBA style. So since we got to learn the FIBA style and adjust to the FIBA style in 3 weeks, a month, that we get to train for this before we go play in the games, mind you, all these other guys, all these other countries, they play the FIBA style all year round. Their whole career, they're playing FIBA style basketball. And in the off seasons, they're playing more FIBA style basketball. So they're used to the FIBA style. The gameplay is just different. I'm not just talking about the dimensions of the court and the trapezoid lane. I'm talking about just the way that the FIBA style is played is different from the American style. Our players only have to play the FIBA style for this 1 month when they're playing these international competitions. And the only way that we can win playing in the style that we're not used to playing is you got to have players who are so dynamic that it doesn't matter what style you put them in, they will still be impact guys. And we have a bunch of one-dimensional guys who are good at one thing in the FIBA style, but they're not good overall for the FIBA style. They got to be great defenders. We don't have great defenders on this team. We don't have super athlete guys who can do multiple things on the team. We don't have guys who can play without the ball, who are, even though they're used to always having the ball in the NBA, we got too many guys who are used to always having the ball in the NBA. Now, all of them on the court at the exact same time. What are they going to do? I played with a lot of players in my day when I was hooping. A lot of players who are very good players. But if you put them on the wrong team where they can't have the ball all the time, they basically become nobody. They become useless because they don't know how to play when they don't have the ball. And this is the issue that we have with this team right now. And just the issue that we have with Team USA basketball. I think we could put together a better team. I would have to look at the overalls of what we got in the NBA and who could be on this team, who should be on this team, who would actually be helpful versus what we actually have. A couple guys that I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now. I think Donovan Mitchell is actually good for a Team USA because even though he's not that tall, he's very athletic. And he's a dynamic player, and I believe he's the kind of guy who can play without the ball in his hands and still be an impact player. We need guys like him, even though he's not that big. Ideal guys would be like a Paul George, 6'8", athletic, can play with the ball, can play without the ball, can be a dominant defensive player. We need people like him. Kawhi Leonard, his teammate, same thing. About 6'8", athletic, can play with the ball, can play without the ball, can guard anybody, can be a lockdown defender. We need people like that. We need people in that 6'6", let's say 6'5" to 6'9" range who can play on the perimeter, who can play inside, who can play above the rim, who are strong enough to not get bullied too much in the paint, can guard anybody, can score from anywhere. Those are the kind of players that you need in FIBA when you have the American team. Again, every other country doesn't need this. The American team, because they have to adjust so quickly to a different style of basketball that they're not used to. All that being said, when all of you players who are, or fans, who watch basketball in the United States, I know many of you are Americans, and you see these Pro-Am leagues that happen in the summer. They got a Pro-Am out here in Miami, and I'll get to that in a second. They got Pro-Ams in every city now, right? These Pro-Am leagues where guys who play overseas or play in college or maybe even NBA players, they can come play in these leagues against college players and local guys and everybody who thinks they have game. And then they have these leagues, and we know the videos get posted to YouTube and Instagram and all that. I want y'all to understand something. I said this in one of my videos for overseas basketball years ago, and I'll keep saying this over and over again. Real basketball, when I say real, I'm talking about professional basketball. G League, NBA, overseas, is nothing like what you see in these Pro-Am leagues. We do not play basketball like that overseas. It's not like that at all. And these Pro-Am leagues, and I've been to the Pro-Am even here in Miami, and it's cool because it's like a spectacle. Like everybody wants to come because this NBA player might play and this guy might play, and you get a chance to see this NBA player that you otherwise might not be able to see because you can't, you don't have tickets to go to the game, but you can see him play in the summer league in some high school gym. It's all good. I appreciate that aspect of the game. And if I was still playing right now, I'm gonna keep it real, I'd be right out there with them playing in those leagues. However, y'all have to understand that what happens in these summer leagues and these trainers, their open runs and this whatever they call this shit, the games that we play in college, NBA, G League, overseas is nothing like that. You can't go play overseas the way that you play in some rec league in the summertime and still be on the team. You won't be on the team. They'll cut you. They'll release you from your contract. It ain't all about one-on-one. You have to actually play defense. You have to move without the ball. You have to know how to play if you don't have the ball in your hands. They're not going to be running offense for you all game. You're not going to average 30. You're probably not even going to average 20. All right, there are players, like I told y'all, who were all conference D1 in America. They only average 15 playing overseas. And it's not, they didn't lose their game. It's just that the style is not conducive to just one person scoring all the points. It's not like that. So if you can't play in a different style, then you won't be playing. And there's only 400 some jobs in the NBA. And if you really think about it, most of the players who play in the NBA ain't stars. All right? Most of the players who play in the NBA ain't Kevin Durant or Jason Tatum or Bradley Beal. And the NBA is one, maybe two guys on every team that does that. It's 30 teams in the league. So we're talking about maybe 60 guys in the whole world who can play like that, where everything's going through them. They get the ball all the time, and they're going to score 25, 30 points every game. 60 guys in the whole world. In Europe, it ain't like there's no team that does that. And again, in the more competitive leagues, nobody does that. So if you're playing like that, and that's the only way you can play, then you better get used to playing in rec leagues in the summertime and figure out what you're going to do for a living, because you won't be playing basketball. And I just want people to understand that. And it's not a knock on those leagues. Again, there's an entertainment aspect to it. I get it. You want to get your YouTube up. You want to get your Instagram likes. And look, even the players who play overseas, since you can only average 15 overseas, you want to come home and score 35. So just to show everybody you can do it. I get it. Listen, I played basketball. I know. I love scoring 35 in a game. But I know that when I go overseas and I'm playing on a serious team, it ain't all about me scoring all the points. It's about the team winning. And if that means I score 10 points and we win, and I might only play 20 minutes of a 40-minute game, then I gotta be mentally prepared for that. It's really a mental challenge more than it is a physical thing. And I think a lot of fans in the United States don't understand this. So then when you see Team USA put that roster up, you're like, oh, we're gonna dominate. Look at all these scores that we got. And then we get into games and it's not happening that way. You're like, what's going on? This is what's going on. I'm explaining it to y'all so y'all understand the game. So if you haven't gotten my book, The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, any of you who wants to play overseas, I got a book called The Overseas Basketball Blueprint. The link is down below. If you want to get on overseas, that book is the guidebook to tell you exactly how it's done, why, when, where, exactly what to do. This is my newest book called The Third Day. This is about the mentality that I was just talking about. It separates the pros from the amateurs. Exactly what I just said. You want to play professional basketball, you're probably not going to be Kevin Durant or Brad Beal or Damian Lillard and score 28 points every night. You're going to have to learn where you fit in and play that role to a T. And if you can't do that, you will not be playing. All right, everybody follow what I'm saying? ThirdDayBook.com. That's where you can get this book. So hopefully Team USA, I still think they have a chance to win gold. Hopefully, I don't know how, but I think we have talent. We got Kevin Durant. I think he's the most talented player. I think he's the best player of any team across the world who's going to be playing in the Olympics, which I like to go with the team who has the best player. So I think we have a chance. We got a chance to win a gold medal because we got Kevin Durant. But I'm not so sure about the rest of this roster and the way that it's put together. And it's not Greg Popovich's fault. It's just that we just don't have the right pieces. You can't ask a chef to make a gourmet meal if you give them a bunch of shitty ingredients. And I'm not saying that the players are bad players. It's just not the right type of players for where we're playing at. Everything ain't for everybody. All right? Certain players don't fit in FIBA basketball. They can get away with it when we have enough talent. But this year, I'm not sure that we do. And I think what's going to happen, especially if we don't win, gold, when I say win, I mean gold, is there's going to be another reckoning, and Team USA is going to have to get serious again about, let's put together a serious program. We need to make players make 3-year commitments. You got to come every year and have a training camp, and we got to really understand FIBA basketball, not just throw a team together and think because we got all this talent that we're just going to win just so we got a bunch of guys who can score a bunch of points. That does not work anymore. We should have learned this lesson already. I get it this year because we got COVID and all that, so maybe, and with the schedule got bumped up and pushed back, rather, we couldn't kind of do it the same way. But this is an issue for USA basketball. It's an issue for American basketball because, as I said, I'll say this for the last time, I think a lot of people just have a convoluted idea of what actually works in basketball. What works here in America and what works in pickup games and rec games here in the United States is not the same as what works in FIBA basketball, and that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. So if we end up getting our asses kicked in the Olympics, send people a link to this video so they understand what happened. This was not a surprise. Work on your game. Dre, all